The morning the bet reached her ears, the men leaning on the fence outside the feed store were already counting their money.
I give her 3 months. That dead corner is nothing but sand.
The others laughed and tossed dollar bills into an old coffee can on the counter.
Let them bet. They don't know what's in the binder.
She bought the 40 acres that afternoon. The clerk raised an eyebrow, but took her check. When she stood on the bare sand for the first time as owner, the wind lifted her hat and a neighbor's truck slowed on the dirt road. The rancher's coffee can grew heavier each week. George kept the tally.
By September, that sand will be blowing right back into our fields. She'll quit.
But Maria had seen diagrams in an old binder that promised a different future.
Sand remembers every drop of rain it's ever been given. I just have to teach it to keep it.
That night, Maria carried a cardboard box from the trailer closet and set it on the kitchen table. Inside was the leather binder. She opened it, and her grandfather's familiar handwriting filled the margins.
He drew these swales for dry country, trenches holding rainwater to soak the sand.
The diagrams showed curved lines across slopes, arrows tracing water sinking into the root zone.
My grandfather walked this desert 60 years ago and already knew how to make it bloom.
She turned page after page, her breath slowing. Every note was a conversation with a man she had never met.
They threw his ideas away. Now I am standing on the same sand with the same binder.
The last page held a hand-drawn map of a property that looked like hers, with a single swale line marked in red pencil.
That's where I start. First light.
She closed the binder and looked out the small window. The moon lit the bare sand, waiting. At dawn, Maria dragged a shovel to the red pencil line and began to cut the first swale.
The binder says the trench must follow the contour, so I follow.
By mid-morning, George's pickup rattled down the dirt road and stopped at her fence line.
You'll break your back for nothing. That ground won't give you a thing.
She didn't look up. The shovel bit deeper, and in the truck bed, 2 men laughed.
Let them laugh. My grandfather's drawings are older than their taunts, and they'll outlast them.
Day after day, she shaped the swales, shoveling sand into berms and spreading mesquite mulch. Every afternoon, George's truck passed, his voice a razor. She never answered.
Still think you can conjure water out of sand, girl.
When the last ridge was smoothed, her hands were raw and her back ached. The swales were done. The sky stayed clear. For 2 weeks, the sky stayed empty. Then one night, a low rumble shook the trailer walls. The rain came in sheets, hammering the sand. The swales filled, holding water like dark mirrors in the moonlight. At first light, Maria waded through the mud and pressed seeds into the damp swale bottoms, one by one.
Tepary beans, native squash. Grandfather's list. They know how to wait for water.
A week later, green shoots pushed through the mulch, tiny flags of pulse and vine against the pale sand.
They're here. The binder was right. The sand is waking up.
When George saw the green from the road, his truck slowed to a crawl. His jaw tightened.
A few weeds don't make a farm. Give it a month.
A month is plenty. The roots are already deeper than you think.
She stood in the small green rows and knew the first test was passed. The real trial was still ahead, and the bet was still on. 3 years passed, and Maria's 40 acres became a dense weave of squash vines, melon mounds, and bean trellises. Then the county paper ran the headline: Aquifer collapse, mandatory water rationing, effective immediately. Irrigation pumps fell silent across the county. Alfalfa fields yellowed, then crumbled. Cotton stalks turned to brittle sticks. George walked his land in silence, his boots kicking up dust where knee-high cotton should have been. On Maria's land, the swales held last winter's rain deep in the root zone. The crops drank without a single pipe.
Grandfather's swales are doing exactly what he drew them to do.
How is her place still green?
Trucks with empty trailers lined the roads. Men sat in the feed store, not speaking, the coffee can on the counter now empty. The joke had soured. The dead corner was the only living thing for 10 miles.
They bet I'd walk away. Now, they're the ones staring at dead land. But this pressure isn't over yet.
The September harvest came heavy. Crate after crate of melons and beans piled high in the shed.
More than any roadside stand can handle. The county needs this.
She built a roadside table with a hand-painted sign. Desert Fresh, pay what you can. Days later, a food bank truck rumbled in. The director had heard about a green farm in the dead corner. He walked the rows, touching leaves, and asked how much she could supply.
The number stunned even me, but the swales held what the aquifer lost.
George watched from the fence line, his land dead. The coffee can had become a bitter memory.
She's holding something we all need.
The food bank offered a contract for her surplus, enough to keep the farm running for years.
Now, I am the only one with food. That's not just a blessing, it's a threat.
After the food bank left, word spread faster than wind. Every failed rancher in the county knew Maria had water.
She's got a secret, and she's selling to the bank while our families go hungry. It ain't right.
By noon, 5 trucks blocked her gate. Men she'd never spoken to stood with crossed arms. What they wanted was written in their faces before they said a word.
You need to open that water to the rest of us. You can't just sit on a green patch while the county dries up.
I am not hoarding water. My plants drink what the sky left 3 winters ago. There's no pipe, no well.
She's lying. There has to be a well. But if there was, I'd have seen it.
One of the men spit into the dust and said, "Watch your back, girl." The trucks left, but the threat stayed.
If they only knew the binder holds a debt older than this drought. But I won't open it for threats.
That night, she walked the swales, the only sound her own footsteps. The oasis had become a target, and the county was watching. A certified letter was tacked to her door the next morning, the county seal heavy and red. You are ordered to cease all agricultural water use, pending investigation of unauthorized groundwater extraction. Failure to comply will result in immediate seizure of produce. She read it twice, the paper steady in her grip, but her pulse hammered.
Looks like the county finally got wise. You got a well on that sand, don't you? Admit it.
There's no well, George. You've walked my land. It's just dirt and old trenches.
She's still sticking to that story. Maybe it's true, but the board won't believe her without proof.
He drove off, but the letter's deadline hung over her head. If she couldn't prove her water was only rain, they'd shut her down.
The binder, the swale designs explain everything. But it's not just farming diagrams. It's proof of what they did to my grandfather. If I hand it over, I lose that leverage.
She carried the worn binder to the kitchen table and opened it to the first swale page. The answer was there, in her grandfather's hand. But using it meant exposing a wound she had vowed to keep until an old debt was paid.
I can separate the pages, show them the swale diagrams only, keep the wage ledgers hidden.
She carefully removed the metal clips, sliding the swale pages into a new folder, leaving the rest in the binder. At the County Agricultural Extension Office, she asked for the water inspector and laid the diagrams on the desk. The inspector, a thin man with reading glasses, studied the curved lines and scribbled notes, then looked up, skeptical. He said, "These are just drawings. How do I know they work without a well?"
Come out to the farm. I'll show you the swales, the moisture lines in the soil. You can dig.
He followed her, dubious, kicking at the sand as she pointed to the dark, damped trenches hidden between the crop rows. He knelt, dug a small hole with his fingers, and the soil crumbled away, barely moist. "That's not enough," he said.
They need to see how deep it goes. 3 years of rain, not one shallow inch.
She drove a shovel into the swale, and water seeped into the hole, rising slowly above the inspector's boot. His silence was the first victory. The inspector straightened, water still beading on his fingers. No well, no pipe, just dirt and old knowledge, he admitted. He scrawled on his clipboard and told her the complaint was dismissed. The cease order was dead.
He saw the swales work, but he didn't see the wage ledgers. That secret stays with me.
News of the cleared inspection spread like gossip in a drought, but the neighbors only grew more suspicious.
Cleared? They didn't dig deep enough. No way that sand holds water without cheating.
A group of ranchers nodded, their suspicion hardening into something darker. The dead corner was no longer a joke, it was a threat. The food bank called with a bigger contract, offering to buy every pound she could grow. It would keep the farm solvent for years, but it also painted a target on her back.
I can't protect the farm and the debt at the same time. Sooner or later, George will come to me. I need to be ready.
She went back to the binder, not the swale pages, but the back section, the one with her grandfather's name, and a list of unpaid wages, dated in George's father's own handwriting. The record was there, and with it, the leverage she had held onto. The county's water crisis was worsening, and time was no longer on anyone's side. George stood at his kitchen window before dawn, the empty fields a gray desert under the moon. The bank had called twice. An hour later, his pickup turned into Maria's drive. No dust cloud of anger this time, just a slow, heavy crawl. He killed the engine and sat for a long minute, hands gripping the wheel, before walking to her door.
Maria, I need to talk to you. Not as a neighbor, as a man who's out of options.
Maria opened the door without a word and led him to the kitchen table. The worn binder was already there.
I've been a fool. Whatever secret you've got, I need it. My land's dead.
This binder didn't belong to some stranger, George. It was my grandfather's. He drew these swales 40 years ago, working on your family's ranch.
She turned to a page with faded handwriting, a ledger of unpaid wages, signed by George's own father.
I've seen that signature my whole life. I didn't know.
You will know. You'll pay every cent he was cheated of. Then I'll teach you the swales.
George stared at the ledger, the signature he had seen on checks and deeds his whole life, now an accusation.
This debt is older than I am, and she's been carrying it alone.
He closed the binder gently, stood, and walked out without another word. The screen door clicked shut behind him. His pickup crawled home with none of the bluster of his old taunts. That evening, his wife set dinner aside when she saw his face. They spoke quietly until the room grew dark.
She's got every right. The swales won't save me unless I make this right.
He pulled a wrinkled photo from the drawer. His father, stern and sunburned, standing on the same dead land that now stretched to bankruptcy.
You threw those drawings away, and now I am paying the price.
He opened a box of old tax returns and a calculator, the numbers cold and hard. By midnight, he had a figure. It would empty his retirement, but it would settle a debt that had been growing for 40 years. At dawn, George sat at the kitchen table, counting stacks of bills from the credit union withdrawal. The number on the calculator matched the ledger.
40 years of interest. It's not enough, but it's all I have.
His wife watched him pack the envelope, her hand pressing his shoulder. She had heard the whole story the night before. An hour later, Maria was mending a drip hose between the swales when she heard his truck. She didn't rise. He walked through the rows, the envelope held out, sweat darkening his collar.
Here. I counted it 3 times. Now teach me. My land is dying.
This isn't a transaction. You owe more than money. Before I teach you, you'll stand with me at the next county board meeting and tell them where your family's water went. Tell them about the wages.
She wants me to air my father's shame in public. That'll cost more than the money. The board? That's fine. I'll do it.
She tucked the envelope into her pocket without opening it and motioned for him to follow. The swale lesson began, but the debt was far from settled. She led him onto his parched ground, the binder under her arm. and knelt where the first swale would go. The dust puffed up in the dry wind.
This contour is wrong for a single trench. Your father's crew ran it straight, but the water runs off. We need a curve that follows the hill.
She knows this land better than I ever did, and she's here because of a ledger I should have found years ago.
From the fence line, 2 ranchers watched, arms crossed. Their trucks idled, and their silence was louder than the old taunts. One shouted from the bed of the truck, "You taught him. Now you'll teach us, or your green patch might just dry up."
He's not special. He's paying a debt you wouldn't understand. When you are ready to settle what your families owe, come find me.
The debt is mine, and the swales are mine to learn. You had years to ask, but you mocked her instead.
The truck gunned its engine, spraying dust. They left, but not before muttering, "This ain't over." Maria knew the board meeting was only days away.
If the board doesn't hear the truth about the water and the wages, everything I built will be for nothing.
She turned back to the swale, her hands steady, but her stomach tight. The real test was still to come. The morning of the county board meeting, Maria climbed into George's pickup without a word. The engine turned over, and they rolled toward town. The county hall was gray and low, already filled with ranchers in stiff shirts. The air smelled of coffee and resentment. George took a seat at the back, his hat in his hands. Maria sat beside him, the worn binder open on her lap. When the chairman called for public comments, George stood slowly, as if lifting a weight he had carried for decades.
I've got something to say about the water. It ain't a well, it's swales, trenches that catch rain. My father knew about them 40 years ago and threw the drawings away.
The room went silent. A rancher in the front row swore under his breath.
He also cheated the man who drew them, Maria's grandfather. I've paid the wages, but the debt is on our family name. The board ought to know where the water really comes from.
Swales don't need a permit. They need rain and patience. If the board will let us, every farm here can have one.
The board members conferred, then stamped an amended water rule on the spot. Swale capture was legal, no well license required. Outside, the sun was high. The ranchers crowded around their trucks, some nodding, others glaring. The battle wasn't over, but the truth was finally on the table. On the drive back from the county hall, George gripped the wheel and stared at the road, his knuckles white. "It's done," he said.
The board changed the rule, but the ranchers outside didn't look ready to change. We're not safe yet.
When they pulled up to the farm, the fence had been cut. Fresh tire tracks crossed the outer swale, crushing a row of young melons.
They won't stop. The water rule protected the swales, not me.
In the distance, a pickup sat on the ridge, its engine idling. The same 2 ranchers watched, faces hard as the desert stone.
I'll fix the fence, and I'll sleep in the shed tonight. They won't come back while I am here.
Number, I won't hide. The day after tomorrow, I'll hold a workshop right here, in the open. The binder's swales belong to anyone willing to learn.
If they come, it could get ugly. You ready for that?
I've been ugly before. My grandfather's face is in these pages. They need to see it.
She walked to the ridge and shouted into the wind, "Day after tomorrow, at dawn, bring your shovels." The pickup didn't move, but the idling stopped. That night, Maria and George mended the cut fence by lantern light. The wire bit back, but neither spoke the fear hanging in the dark. Before dawn, Maria copied a single swale diagram from the binder and nailed it to the feed store bulletin board. By noon, a small crowd of ranchers clustered around it, their voices low and uncertain.
They'll come, but not all want to learn. Some want to watch you stumble.
Let them come. Every eye on this land becomes a witness, whether they intend it or not.
The night before the workshop, a heavy stillness pressed on the trailer. Maria sat with the open binder, tracing her grandfather's handwriting by candlelight. She didn't sleep. The stars wheeled, and she listened to the wind, waiting. At first gray light, she walked the swales alone, the binder in one hand, a shovel in the other.
Today, this land speaks for itself.
Headlights cut through the mist. One pair, then two, then a line of trucks rolling slowly onto the field. The idling stopped and doors began to open.
I didn't conjure water. I invited it. This land taught me what my grandfather knew. Slow the rain, and it stays.
She drove the shovel into the swale, and water welled from the sand. The men who had bet against her leaned closer. A rancher who had cut her fence stepped forward. His voice rough. "Show us. All of it."
My grandfather's drawings are in this binder. He drew them while your families paid him pennies. The water isn't the only debt here.
I paid mine, but the lesson belongs to anyone if you are ready to learn without the old contempt.
The ranchers fell silent, then one by one pulled shovels from their trucks. A line formed along the contour she had marked. That harvest, the food bank truck returned, this time with empty shelves across 4 counties, depending on Maria's oasis. She stood in the field as the truck pulled away, a crate of melons beside her, the bet long since forgotten.
Abuelo, your kingdom is green.
The dead corner had become the heart of the county, and the last fence post no longer marked a bet, but a boundary that could cross. By the following spring, George's land showed its first green stripe, a curving swale holding water where dust had blown for years.
She was right. The land remembers. If you give it back what it's owed.
At the feed store, the old coffee can had been turned into a planter, sprouting tepary beans. Ranchers who had once mocked Maria now asked her to walk their properties, marking contour lines with red flags. The food bank signed a 10-year contract, guaranteeing her farm would anchor the county's produce supply.
Grandfather drew this long before any of them believed. Now they're tracing his lines in their own soil.
Maria and George stood at the fence line, the one that had divided dead sand from green, and saw swales now crossing the boundary.
I wish my father could see this, but I am glad yours can.
She smiled, and for the first time, the smile reached her eyes without a shadow of the old weight. The desert had been taught to hold rain, and a wrong had been righted, one curving trench at a time. On the anniversary of the first swale, Maria drove to the old cemetery on the hill with a bouquet of desert sage.
Your drawings are in the ground now, Abuelo. I showed them who you were.
She knelt and opened the binder to the page with his photograph, tucking a copy of the county's water amendment beside it. She didn't linger. The land was waiting, and the swales still needed tending. Back at the farm, she walked the rows alone, touching broad leaves, checking the moisture in swale after swale.
The desert doesn't need to become a garden for everyone. It just needed someone to listen.
In the trailer, the binder now rested on a shelf beside a lit candle, a promise kept, a debt honored. Outside, the evening settled over the green oasis, the old taunts long buried under new topsoil. She had not only fed the county, she had restored a name and proved that the dead corner was never dead. The land had been waiting, and someone had finally remembered how to ask. The first light of a new season touched the swales, turning the water ribbons gold. Maria sat on the porch steps with a cup of coffee, the binder resting beside her.
40 acres of sand. That's all it was.
In the distance, George's truck ambled along the boundary road, slowing by the fence to check his own green rows. The county board had hung a framed copy of the swale diagram in the hall, beside the amended water rule. At the feed store, the old coffee can planter had been joined by a dozen more, each filled with seedlings. The green rectangle of her farm now spread beyond the original 40, as neighbors guided their own rain across the old boundary. She didn't need to watch the price of water or the betting pool. The land had the final say, and it had spoken clearly. The candle on the shelves still burned beside the binder, a quiet vigil for a debt that had been paid and a memory that no longer ached. She picked up her cup and walked into the rows, her footsteps familiar to the earth, a daughter of the desert, who had taught it to drink. The rose closed behind her, green and deep. The swale's whisper was the only music the land ever needed. The desert farm became a quiet landmark. No sign, no fanfare, just green where none should be. Children came on field trips to see how rain could be slowed, touching the wet soil with wonder. Maria would show them the binder, open to her grandfather's photograph, and tell them the story of a debt.
Not a lesson about money, about memory, about what the land remembers when you listen.
She never expanded beyond the 40 acres. She didn't need to. The swales had spread without her. George's land greened, and the old betting pool became a community seed exchange. One evening, she sat on the porch at sunset, the binder beside her, the candle still burning. She smiled, not because the struggle was over, but because it had been worth it. The desert had been taught to drink, and the kingdom she built was not of sand, but of hope, rooted where her grandfather had drawn the first line.